When is the time you regret booking a vacation to Portugal? When you find out Arsenal are coming to America. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. That's right. I am in Portugal. I am outside of Lisbon. I am in a lovely house that we've rented. My parents have joined. My wife and children are here. Not the ones they don't know about, the actual ones. I'm kidding. No, my whole family is together outside of Lisbon, and I booked it. And like 1 week after I book it, Arsenal announced, we're going on a USA preseason tour. And so I'm happy to be here. Don't get me wrong. I feel very fortunate to be here. But maybe just that wistful thought of the memories missed by not being in the USA to meet up with all you fabulous people who will be there in Orlando and Baltimore. But there's still a podcast to do. And there's still Arsenal news to talk about, including the fact that Arsenal played a game and won a game. And I think it is an exercise in realizing that it's not just the players who train for the season. We all train for the season. And I have to admit, I'm impressed with everybody. I got to give everybody credit because Twitter Arsenal was ready for the season. There was no need for preseason. There was hysteria over the performance in the first half. There was massive reaction to the way we performed in the second half. It was mid-season form from Arsenal Twitter and social media reaction. And of course, our Discord match day chat, which all you need to know about that is that I had to create a calm match day chat channel for people who could not hack it in the main one. So yeah, it's all happening. There's transfer news. We're going to get to all that stuff. I just want to say, I hope everyone is doing well, enjoying their summer, and maybe taking just a little deep breath before we get too ready for the season. I'm going to make one more comment. There are laws in the UK that are slightly different than laws in other places, and these laws prevent people from speaking on certain things. They are very serious and they need to be taken very seriously. And so there have been people who have gotten in touch to say, when are you going to speak on certain things? And I want you to know that when we are able, there is a willingness and readiness to speak on certain things should that time come. That time is not now. And I hope that you will understand that. And I literally cannot say anything further. So with that, I will introduce Tim, who's on Twitter, @Roberto. Hello, Tim.
Hello there. Greetings.
And Clive, who's on Twitter, @ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
Hello, indeed. And I hope that you gentlemen agree that what I have said is a fair representation of the situation. Great. Okay, so let's dive into it. And there are some players returning to training, but it occurs to me, we did an instant reaction pod on Patreon for the match, if you want to call it that, against Nuremberg. And I want to get into it now. And Tim, I'll start with you. Let's jump to the end, and then maybe we can jump back to some of the other things. Like sometimes when you love your players, and ideally we should love all our players. It's not always easy, but we certainly root for them. Sometimes a player of quality shows up and resets or reminds you of what real quality looks like. And you get so used to trying to squint and see the elite quality in the players you have that when you get elite quality in the team, you're suddenly smacked in the face with it. And I think Gabriel Jesus may do that. This is a player I've been excited for us to even think about signing for years. I was super excited about the signing, and based on 1/2 of a preseason game, I think it's time for victory laps, clearly. No, I'm kidding. But like, Timmy stepped on the pitch and he showed real quality, and I think it is going to push other players to be better. It is going to help other players find space they didn't have before. But most importantly for us as fans, I think it's going to be a little bit like a drink in the desert, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, 100%. You know me, I don't read too much into, certainly not the early preseason games, but I'm very happy and willing to read lots and lots into this. And I think you're right. It's something we've spoken about as well, right? Like our expectations of what a striker does have become very, very low. And all of a sudden seeing someone who can link play and then get in the box afterwards feels, like you say, like a drink in the desert. What you said there about, when quality shows up and you actually see what quality, the signing, I mean, there are actually loads of signings I think this compares with. A bit like someone like Thierry Henry. And again, I'm not saying for 1 second that Gabriel Jesus is going to be as good as Thierry Henry was. But, that kind of post-hype thing. But it reminds me of Ødegaard as well. That's one I've pointed to a lot, that kind of, clearly very talented. Not quite the same as Ødegaard because he's actually won stuff at a big club, Gabriel Jesus. But that kind of, as far as I'm concerned, hasn't reached his potential yet, hasn't shown his potential yet. And that's not saying he's been really good, but I think there is world class in that. I really, really do. I've always thought that. And yeah, it kind of just reminded me a little bit of when Ødegaard showed up, and we hadn't really had a number 10 for about 18 months since Ozil was kind of forced into / volunteered into semi-retirement. And then we got Smith Rowe in there, and it's like, oh wow, this is really good. And then we got Ødegaard in there, and you're like, yeah, that's a number 10, isn't it? That's what a number 10 does, all those number 10 things. Yeah, I remember those. Yep. And I think you're right. I think it's going to be exactly the same with Gabriel Jesus. And I think the really interesting thing about it, first of all, we've got the signing done really early. So he's playing in our first pre-season game, and I think that's so important. I think that was important to the player as well as the team. But I just think and hope it makes us a bit of a surprise at the beginning of next season, because it does take teams a little while to adjust. So when we play Palace at Selhurst Park, like they knew when we played them in April, push up to the halfway line, nothing going in behind, and we can squeeze them. I'm sure they will try and do a version of that again. And look, I'm not sitting here and saying we're going to win 3-0 or anything like that. We could easily lose that game, but I think it's going to be different. I almost kind of hope Palace do try that and assume they're playing the same team that they played in April, because I really think we've got the tools now to cope with that a bit better. That's not. I'd like for us to cope better with stuff like that with increased technical quality, but having a guy who can run in behind and stretch you and worry you and run into those channels and run into the box. And I love that first goal from Gabriel Jesus as well, like the finish, that just emphatic, just absolutely smashed in from a narrow angle, and his second goal as well, getting across the defender. Like all of this stuff is just stuff we have not seen for quite a long time now.
And it can't just be put in on a plate for me and I'll score, though. He went on one solo run that was really incredible and nearly finished it with a goal. And I get that nearly a goal is not a goal, but it's the point that he's also someone who once in a while will create his own thing, will make something happen without needing it to be the perfect move. The other thing you see, the goal I like almost better, weirdly, is the one, well, obviously because Martinelli provided the assist, I love it, but is that goal for the simple reason that who made that run last season? That ball still needs an excellent finish, but that run was not there. If that ball had gone to that spot, our number 9 would have had a great view of it from the top of the D. Like that's what would have happened, right? And that's not to kill the guy. It's just that run wasn't there. And so I think, Nketiah wants to make hurtful runs. To his credit, I think that's the thing he does well. Gabriel Jesus, clearly, the number of little dagger runs he makes in deep, he just doesn't sit still. And, we always talk about who the center backs want to face, right? Are they going to have a hard day? Or are they going to have an easy day? And I think he's the kind of center forward that whatever you think of his quality, he's going to make that a real annoying day for those central defenders, right? They are going to have to follow runs, decide whether to hold a line or not hold a line. And those little decisions, do I go or do I stay? Or do I stay or do I go? Those are going to put back lines under pressure and open up space for Saka and for Martinelli, and even second man runs, from maybe an Ødegaard or whoever's on the left side of that. Please.
I just wanted to further the analogy of when we actually had a number 10 again. I guess hearing you say what you said there, I think I would almost draw a line to we just basically didn't have a 9 for ages. Then Nketiah coming in was a bit like when Smith Rowe came in a year earlier, and you're like, I remember this. And then Jesus is like the Ødegaard and but this is what it's like when someone really, really, really does it to a very, very high standard. And it's that jump from, and again, yep. I'm not looking to bag Nketiah or Smith Rowe. Honestly, delighted they're both in our squad. And obviously Smith Rowe doing a slightly different role, but it does feel like that. We did have no one, and then we had someone competent to good, and now we've got someone excellent.
Yeah. And also it's not just quality. He's right in the heart of his prime now, right? So he's the finished article now, or at least getting right to that point, as opposed to some games they really have it, some games they don't, because they're still learning their game a bit. And I don't know, Clive. Like, I do think we do it. We're all guilty of it. I am. A player comes into our team. He plays a handful of decent games. He's 21 years old, and we're like, he's world class. He's world class. And like, we don't have a lot of world class players. We have a lot of players that could be world class, that might develop into that. But like, Smith Rowe's not there yet. Martinelli's not there yet. I don't know that I think Odegaard is there yet, although the talent is there. Bukayo Saka is probably just about there. In midfield, we don't have, well, we may have one. In defense, I think we have players who are on the brink of it, maybe, but none of them, I think, are really necessarily there. The goalkeeper is probably trending that direction. But like, to me, Gabriel Jesus is right now the best player in the team, day one. And that raises everyone's level. There are other players we have that can hit his level on their day, but I think he's there more consistently. And I love when you do that, because I do think that a rising tide floats all boat, and a better player forces the level up in the team. And I think that will happen. And Tim typed it into the chat, but I had it in mind too. He had a great post-match interview, talking about wanting to win everything, right? He wants to win everything. He doesn't care about being the superstar. He wants to win everything. So in terms of his play and his character, I think he's embracing the idea of being the guy for this club, and it feels like a good fit. So what did you pull out of this performance of his? And then we'll get to some of the other players that were on the pitch, because there were other players on the pitch. But and again, one half of the first preseason game, I get it. But these are your first looks at what he's going to try to be at this club. And so I think it's fair game to analyze the character and the type of play that we're seeing.
Yeah, it was very refreshing to see how good he was. And you haven't got to be a super analyst to work out, oh my God, we got a forward, right? So one of my sayings is, in football, you're as good as your forwards. You heard me say that one before. And sometimes you don't realise it until you see one. Even with my own team that I'm involved with, we got a new forward this year, and straight away we started playing to him. Everything changed. Because we could see he was in charge of his duels. We became more competitive. And I use that in some of my analogies with the podcast. And when you have good forwards, your game plan, everything changes. You can't wait to get it to them. And the only thing I saw in this game that worried me a little bit, that he took the rucksack that Bukayo Saka had been carrying the club in off of his back and got it onto his back. And I don't want one player to have the rucksack on, if you know what I mean. We want a few players.
You're saying he needs more rest. We got to rest him for the next preseason game.
I said get him off. If you look at my Twitter timeline, I said, right, after the goal, I said, can we sub him now to protect him for the rest of the season? Yeah. That's after the first goal, literally like 3 minutes in. And we all had that little bit of I made a joke of it, right? But we're all thinking, oh, please don't get injured. Please don't get injured. We really like you. You're a really good player. You fit us perfectly. And the interview afterwards was so enlightening. I mean, it was almost as enlightening as his performance. They said to him, you're the superstar. He said, no, I'm not the superstar. We need to do this together. I believe in this project. I mean, he sounded like a technical director, for God's sake. I mean, he did
say the word project a lot.
He was outstanding as an individual and as a football player. It's nice when the club gets something right, and I don't think there was many debates about his quality. But actually, I agree with him. I don't think we scratched the surface with him. I think he feels emboldened. I think he's thinking, right, I'm going to show everybody what I've really got, and I'm going to be the middle of this team, and I'm free. Do you know what I mean? Look at that to me. And there was no messing. And I'll tell you now, there were players in that pitch that didn't have their top button done up on their shirts in the first half that were livelier in the second half. The moment he came on, and they started springing about, moving about, and not to embarrass themselves. And it looked sharper, And I tell you, it was so interesting to see that. And I, you know me, I think we mustn't be afraid of good players, mate. Get good players in. Don't worry about who you're upsetting. Get them. Just get them and let them fight for the shirt. And let them fight for the shirt and fight for all of us, right? Just get them in. Don't worry about whose careers you're upsetting. We need people that can do it at the top level. We've been waiting at the edge of glory now for 2-3 years. I think it's time to step over that line.
That top button bit, Clive, it just reminded me, I'm sure everyone's heard the Ian Wright anecdote about Dennis Bergkamp's pyjamas.
Yeah.
I don't know if you haven't heard this, I'll very quickly, basically at an away game, Ian Wright and Dennis Bergkamp were rooming together, and Wright, he said, we were going to bed and I was wearing just my vest and my boxers, and Dennis Bergkamp comes out the ensuite bathroom in proper silk pajamas, buttoned up to the chin kind of thing with his wash bag, and he thought, oh my God, this club is changing in front of my eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to ask though, guys, we need a podcast poll here. And I don't know that I should be doing this live on the pod, but we just need to discuss this. How many Jesus puns in the title this season are we allowing? Because I'm always thinking pod title as we're recording, and Praise Jesus is the one coming to mind right now. But should I save that for the season? Keep that, how many of these are we gonna allow?
I think they're endless, to be honest.
They're endless?
Yeah.
Okay.
We should maybe save it till we get a competitive goal. What do you think, Elliot? I don't know.
No, come on. As far as I'm concerned, he's already on the leaderboard. These count towards his season. I'm going to petition FB Ref to put those 2 goals into his stats. His XG's off the charts already. But, okay, so we could do the whole podcast on Jesus, but let's save it because he's going to be such a big talking point. Tim, there are other players that played. And one of the players that I think I'm going to have my eye on a lot this preseason, not because I don't think he's great, but because I think there's still some discovery happening for him and for us, and that's Emile Smith Rowe. Emile Smith Rowe got the number 10 last summer. He is a big part of our first team, an important part of our first team. But Mikel Arteta made some big requests of this player, right? What did he say a 10 needs? What did he say, 15 goals and 10 assists? I mean, he set some lofty numbers. And then he played out wide most of last season, right? Not as an interior, not as a playmaking 10, but as more as a true winger. And I look at Gabriel Martinelli, and it's not that I see a more talented player necessarily, but I see a player who probably has a clearer sense of what he does. He runs up and down the touchline. He presses and harries like mad. He tries to, drive into the box and get a shot or provide a cross. And that's his identity on the pitch feels very clear. I think Emile Smith Rowe's final position in our team is still up for grabs a bit. And I think that maybe is leading to the player not always putting in a consistent performance. Maybe I'm giving him an out. But this was a game, and again, preseason is difficult, right? Because you're going to look better if you're on the pitch with Jesus, right? And an Odegaard and a Saka and the players that you might get to play with at 1.5 versus if you're on the pitch with a Patino, who impressed, by the way, an Nketiah, other players that maybe aren't quite at the same level. So do you think that there's something to be learned about Smith Rowe this preseason and to be figured out this season? I didn't think he looked as influential or sharp as he could. I am, again, giving the caveat that the players he was on the pitch with, not quite as good, but I think he is a player that will be under the microscope a bit, both for himself and for the fans.
Yeah, 100%, and it's just pure. It's just purely about the progression of a player, right? You give them some KPIs. What did he do 2 seasons ago? Broke into the team, established himself. Great. What did they do? Had a chat over the summer. New contract, number 10. That means we need more end product from you. Tick. Okay, he did that, and now he's got to do it again. So there has to be repeatability. But B, what's the next step? Well, the next step is you're not quite a lock in the first 11 yet. And that's what you're going for. You've got big competition with Gabriel Martinelli, and you've got to really, really push and try and make that shirt yours. And I'd say that there are 2 things I think here. The first one I'd say is for Smith Rowe, if I were Arteta or one of the coaches having a discussion with him, I'd say to him, when you're not in the team, we want to notice you're not there, if you know what I mean. We want to say, Arsenal are missing Smith Rowe today. And I don't think we're quite at that stage, which I know that sounds like a criticism, and maybe it is a little bit, but it's because the player has big quality, I think, and I think he's on a good trajectory. I just think that's the next bit. It's the kind of, when Arsenal don't have Smith Rowe, I want to hear the commentator saying, they're missing Smith Rowe, aren't they? I want you to bring stuff that's obvious to the team. The other thing that really interested me about him playing on Friday was, I mean, personally, I probably owe Lee Carsley, the England under-21 coach, an apology, because I was so surprised he was playing, because Smith Rowe played for the under-21s this summer like 3 or 4 times. Now, all of the players who played internationally are coming back to pre-season training today, but Smith Rowe didn't. He's obviously come back in the first tranche. So he played all these under-21 games, had a short break, and now he's back playing again. That tells me that has to be, obviously that's deliberate, and there is a reason that they're doing that, and it must be about building his physical capability and saying, because the other big thing for him, right, is we also want a full season from you and not half a season, because what we've had is 2 good half seasons so far. And so there must be some kind of plan, and it must have been that Arsenal said to England under-21s, yeah, play him. We want him to play, and then he'll get 2 weeks on the beach, and then he's coming back and he's playing again. And so the strength and conditioning guys must have a plan for him, because that's unusual. But I know nothing about strength and conditioning, obviously, but that's quite unusual. But you want to see a different plan probably for a player like Smith Rowe. They wouldn't be doing their jobs if they weren't sitting and looking at Smith Rowe and saying, why can't we get a season out of you? So they, you know, they have to have a slightly different plan for him as well. So I think the fact that he played at all was really, really interesting. And even regardless of the actual performance, I think that's one of the big takeaways from the game, just that his name on the team sheet.
Yeah, and I don't feel the need to caveat my opinions on this, but I want to be clear that I'm not particularly criticizing Smith Rowe with any of this discussion. It's more that I think he's a player that can definitely establish himself in our first team. I think he has the talent to do it, and where that happens is interesting. I mean, I definitely thought he'd be an 8 or a 10. Like, I thought that's who he'd be, but I think his short space passing, the final third passing, the timing of it, the weight of it, the precision of it, that just has to get a little sharper. He's great carrying the ball at his feet. Obviously, he strikes the ball beautifully and has an ability to get his shot off and get past a man. I think if he just gets his timing a little bit better with that final third passing, I still think maybe there's a place for him in that left 8 role. And it's sort of interesting because we've got a lot of young players now, it seems, who will be looking at that, one of them being Fabio Vieira. I'm in the land of Fabio Vieira. In fact, I mentioned that at the car rental counter when I got into Lisbon, and received a pretty bad reception to that mention, because obviously this is Sporting Lisbon territory and not Porto territory, which was made very, very clear to me in that conversation. Clive, I know you want to talk about Smith Rowe, but I mean, if we don't get to Pablo Maurice soon, I'm kidding. You can talk about Smith Rowe. Go for it.
Yeah, I think, his last game, as Tim was talking, I looked up his last game. It was the 13th of June he played, and he's back playing. So that tells you something. And I was surprised.
It's insane.
And so there's something going on there. He looked bright in the game. He did look bright. I think what he needs to do, and I know Paul agrees on this, is get on the ball more. Just have more touches. Don't let the game go around you. He's very smart, really intelligent. He can really impact and influence football matches. But I feel sometimes he's a bit peripheral, and I think he's a bit conservative. I think he's a bit more aggressive and turn around and drive a little bit more and really push his game to the extremities. I think definitely if he does that, I think we'll all notice him a little bit more. And he's been challenged. And when I saw him play at the weekend, I thought, are you back early because you know there's competition? That was my first thought. I didn't think about the strength and condition, and Tim makes a good point. I think he knows it's all on, right? He's already sharing with Martinelli, and other players can play that left role. Easy. If we were to buy a top right-sided player and Saka goes over to the left, that door is shutting quick, right? So,
not to mention he's not Brazilian, which is quickly becoming a big strike against him in this.
And we're here, the three of us, right? And obviously, this is not a new player to us. He's been coming over the hill for years, and we're all here debating. And we could have a podcast about his best position, and we could argue. We could make that last. You know what I mean? Because it's a true debate. What is his best position? I don't believe in number 10s, full stop, right? I'm not a big fan of them. I call them something else, right? It's more of attacking eights, the third midfielder, the highest midfielder in three, but they normally fit to one side. So 10 staying in the middle anymore, blocking up zone 14 ain't happening. The football game has changed. Want to get pockets of people together. So, but he's an attacking mid. Is he an inside or an outside player? Does he want to drive past people? Does he run off the ball? Does he run through people? When he receives it, Kane to him, yes, he can do all these things, but is he doing enough of it to define himself? And it's not for us to define him. It's for him to define himself so his position is obvious. And that would be my coaching message to him, right? You make sure we know who you are, and then we can fit you into the plan. So lovely player. One I struggle to see. I've said it, I put my hand up. I've always struggled to see him. Tim has seen him before I did. I just when I don't see a player, I'd go, okay,
and
let's
Paul,
see what
to
you
be
got.
fair, Paul was early on him.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen him. Trust me, I've seen him. I don't even know he's talented. He's not new. He's not a surprise. But it's hard to define him. That's what I mean by seeing him. It's hard to define him.
Yeah.
I've never been sure, and whereas other players, easy to define, So, hey, it's what it is.
And those players can go either way. But here's what I'll say, right? Alex Iwobi was a great example of a very good player that we liked, that we developed, that played in our first team, but we weren't really able to define his role. He could link, he could carry, didn't have a shot, didn't have a final ball. The thing that's going to help Smith Rowe not fall into that space, I think, is he's all end product. He's going to score goals. If he's in your team, he's going to get you end product. And as long as you're doing that, there's a lot more time and patience to figure out where you fit on the pitch.
Yeah.
Because, yes, please.
Sorry, mate. I think as we get better, and we will get better, and we'll have better defenders, and we'll be playing in the opposition half for a lot longer, I think this conversation maybe become mute. Do you know what I mean? Because if you're in the opposition half in tight spaces, turn towards goal, 1-2 combinations, we haven't really got much to teach him, have we? Do you know what I mean? He can do all that stuff. I think it's just as we're developing into a team and having those days where we get bossed about a bit at Palace, at Newcastle and things like that, we need to find a way to overcome those games to allow him to be more of himself for longer periods. I think that's the next step. But I'm not worried. I just think it's a debate. And he's not the only stylistic debate we'll have. There's other players like Kieran Tierney, for example, stylistically. It's not about talent. Stylistically, there's a conversation to be had, and I find that interesting.
I think we did, but did we get confirmation that he was subbed off as a plan? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, he was warming down afterwards, so no injury concern there. Okay. Tim, do you mind if I stay with Clive just for 1 second? Because I want to ask him about a player that played, and I know you didn't see the whole game, but Clive, Charlie Patino, look, I am not a great judge of physiques. As someone who's had to look at mine in the mirror for many, many years, I don't know that I have the best judge of this sort of thing, but he was a boy when he played in the FA Cup, and he looks a little bit more like a man now. Posting some pictures on social media that I think are designed to display his added muscle that he's packed onto his frame. And, I think there is this age at which these very talented boys in the academy start to grow into guys who are ready to play the man's game, the senior game. And, I think maybe physically he feels he's ready. I think he looked a little bit more ready. I'm curious if you see a player who's growing into not just his body, but his game and might be ready to be a part of this team this season. And I'm not saying like he's playing against Palace on a Friday night, but is this someone who plays some Europa League and domestic cups instead of going on loan? Do we keep him in the group? Because midfield is a group that's struggling. And depending on what he can show, there may be a place for him.
Yeah. This player is really, really, really exciting. And I've listened to all the hype. And funny enough, I did watch him as a 10-year-old, right? Literally, that's how long I've known about this player.
That's the age when you really know.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
And the only reason
if you don't know at 10, you never know.
I think by 10 or 11, the only reason I saw him was because my son, a friend of mine's boy was playing in an academy team at Luton, and Charlie Patino was playing 2 years up to play in that year, right? So, and I thought, who is this kid? and then he ran the game, right? So I'm trying to stay cool about this because I was always worried about his ability to move across the ground. Pace is always an issue. Physicality was always an issue. He grew very quickly, so he looked very willowy. He's no longer willowy. In this game, you can see his mechanics, how he runs, has really improved. He's got a lot more ability to cover the ground. Where he is literally got nothing that we can teach him is the way he receives the ball and keeps the ball, we call it safe side. You keep it safe side furthest away from the opponent. The way he chops it back keeps you off balance. When he plays the pass, he's not playing the pass to give it to somebody. He's giving the pass so the next pass is already on. So he's got information on the pass. His wisdom is amazing. His long passing is crisp. His short passing is crisp. He is very interesting. Now, the only thing is you can't tell when you're playing a German team from the second tier is where he is exactly in his development. But amongst our group, he's getting closer to the group. And you can judge versus our players. I mean, there's a position waiting for him in our team as that left 8. And when he gets it, it's over, right? It's over. It's just a time thing. It's nothing more than that. It's a time thing. He's going to be a box-to-box passer, mover, creator, deep line playmaker, can get to the edge of the box and play the final pass. And he's going to be very special. It's just a matter of, I hope people are patient, because we do like to anoint people, like myself included. And we just need to be patient, because every time he has a bad game, it doesn't mean the world ends, right? It just means we just need to give him time. And if he has that time, funny enough, I'm more convinced after seeing that little cameo that at any point, because he made a huge step for me in that game. And so he's gonna be a player. Watch this space.
Tim, you want to add on that?
Yeah, sure. Just on the kind of physicality element of it, I think a lot of us, when we talk about, a lot of fans in general, when we talk about this, we still think about it slightly wrong. We think about muscle mass. That's what we think of when we think of like the physicality of a Premier League footballer. And actually that's not really what the coaches and etc. are looking for. When they talk about the physicality of being a Premier League footballer, they're talking about repeatability of sprints, explosiveness, things like that. Now, don't get me wrong, being a bit willowy, yeah, you probably, want to get some shoulders on you. And you look at someone like Saka. Like, Saka's not naturally built, but you can tell he's done some lifting and he's got those shoulders nice and strong, so he can fend people off. But like, generally speaking, you look at like someone like David Silva, right, in central midfield. Again, not like hench by any means, like quite wispy, quite willowy, but a brilliant athlete, very rarely injured, running games from central midfield, repeatability of sprint, that type of thing. That's what I think coaches and football teams really mean when they look at like Fabio Vieira, for example. I know a lot of people have been like, oh, he needs to get on the weights. And yeah, he probably does a bit, but I don't think that's the physicality in today's Premier League. That's not the physicality teams talk about. They're thinking more about, like, again, a player like Jordan Henderson, right? Obviously, he's in his 30s now. He's filled out, but he was always quite willowy. And of course, famously, Alex Ferguson didn't sign him because he felt he ran a bit weird, which sounded like a really weird comment. But this is exactly the sort of thing that managers will look at, because he thought he'd be an injury, full of injury problems. And it's things like mechanics. Those are the things. Because you look at Smith Rowe, you wouldn't say Smith Rowe is like, oh, he's a bit willowy. Like, again, not hench, but oh, he's a bit willowy. But he's had physical problems, right? And that's probably a mechanics thing. And I think that's much more where we need to focus on when we look at players like Patino and Vieira. The fact that the fact that a tight t-shirt wouldn't rip open on their chest at the moment, I don't think that's a problem. It's more mechanics and repeatability.
Look, my t-shirts rip open all the time, and it hasn't helped me at all in any aspect of my career. I will say that, like, there are players too who put muscle on and it doesn't work for their body. And a player that comes to mind is Jack Wilshere. Jack Wilshere, light on his feet, beat a man, good explosiveness in a short space, put muscle on to try to protect himself, and lost himself, I think. Lost a little bit of that that lightness on his feet that made him
body
so hard to
changed.
live with in central midfield. Yeah.
His body changed, and it changed over time. It took away his strength, which is the ability to move. And when you have muscle, you have to carry
Agility,
that muscle around, right? And so you don't, if you look at, well, I've seen lots of pro players, their upper bodies are very, very light. What we don't see so clearly on TV is their lower bodies where all the power is, right?
Look at Saka. His legs are like tree trunks.
That's where all the power is. But if you look at, I don't want to go into this too deeply, but you want to be looking for things like what's happening from your knee to your ankle, what's happening around your calf space. What does that look like? I mean, I spotted Lacazette slow in 2019. And you can see where his body shape was going, right? And you have to predict these things. This is why I'm not so sure about Serge Gnabry, right? And you got to think why Bayern signed Coman and they didn't, and Sane. Look at their body types. Look at it, right, and predict the future, right? So trust me, with a man with that similar body, I know what you're talking about, right? So, but you're absolutely right.
I want to go on record as saying Serge Gnabry may be trending in a direction. I don't know if I would say your body and his body are similar. Like, I don't know.
Hey, not similar. I mean, well, give or take.
He might be at like 6% body fat, which is too high for his. I don't know.
I don't want to. It's not. It's about your ability to get to the ball, move the ball, get to the ball repeatedly. The ability to get to the ball. That's a level of physicality. When you arrive there,
hitting your spots.
His ability to travel is like unbelievable. He's got a motorbike, right? So it's that's what we're after. And Fabio Vieira's got it, and that's a really good point. And that's what we need. But Charlie Patino, back to where we started, his legs are moving. The legs are moving. He looks metronomic, and he's moving at a pace that men move. So he's got a chance. He's got a chance.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, Clive, I think you are in perfectly acceptable shape. I think you put work into it. You get on the bike, you go for your walks.
I do.
When I first met you, I mean, I didn't see a Gnabry doppelganger exactly, but the similarity in body type, yes, definitely there, and it jumped out.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You bet. And I'm sure nearly the same player in your day. There's a few more players that we should pick out from this, and like I just want to quickly touch on Pepe, Tim. Like, some players, they face lower opposition and they just dominate them. That's what they do. I mean, El Neni with his trademark once in a while, blasted in from out of nowhere, absolute golazo, sensational goal from distance. Love it. He's going to be in the team. If you don't like him, you're going to have to warm to him because we're going to see him play. If you do like him, that's great. I think he's a player that, we've seen him in the Europa League. Like, there's certain level where El Neni just looks like a different player. Safe. Maybe if you want to be critical, hiding at the highest level, but confident, dominant, aggressive at a lower level. And we saw a bit of that. But Nicola Pepe, it just doesn't seem to come out for us anymore. And I don't, maybe I'm too much of a believer in the talent that's in his boots. I'm inclined to think that he's just someone who can't get on the page with his manager, isn't connected to the club anymore, and we're just not going to see him able to give us what we need. That goal against Wolves, probably the last great moment we'll see from Pepe. But do you have a sense of that? Because this is one of those weird ones that you'll get in preseason, right? A player who feels like he's pulling away from the club feels like they're pulling away from him, and yet there he is, first preseason game, out on the pitch, and sometimes it just feels wrong, and this one just feels wrong now.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess on that subject, seeing Lucas Torreira's Instagram this morning and him flying into London for probably the first time he's set foot in London for quite a long time. The way I'd summarise Pepe, I guess, is that we never had him as a player, and last season we lost him as a person as well. Like you say, that disconnect, that kind of, like probably mutual between him and the manager. Like, we don't hate each other, but this isn't working. I know this isn't working. This is like just drifting to an inevitable conclusion. We both know what it is at this point. Pepe probably doesn't even want to stay in the Premier League, I don't think, and probably wouldn't have many suitors there anyway. So it's not even like, if I show here, I might get a move to Chelsea or I don't know, or Aston Villa or something. Like, I don't think. I think this is just this is an abort mission type thing, and maybe he'll go back to France. I think that'll probably be his preference, but whether the economics of that work will remain to be seen. But yeah, I mean, tactically, it was never. I mean, I guess it's like the Aubameyang thing, but maybe less. I don't know. Maybe Aubameyang's a bit more that kind of I'm going to thump on the door and have this out type character, and that brought things to a swifter conclusion. Whereas with Pepe, it's kind of this broke down footballistically a little while ago. It's probably broken down professionally now, but maybe Pepe should have just got really angry at Arteta on December the 31st and got himself chucked out in the January transfer window, or something. Maybe that's the most viable way out of Arsenal if you really want to leave and you can't get your move. Maybe Lucas Torreira will do that. Maybe he'll just pick a fight with Mikel Arteta tomorrow, and then he'll probably get paid to leave. But 100%. We know it hasn't been working for a while, and he's lost his place to Saka indefinitely. He's lost his place as even any sort of impact sub. Arsenal have been trying, and by the looks of it, have failed now. To land Raphinha as well, it's done. We all know it's done, and we all also probably know that this isn't getting resolved until August the 31st on loan to somewhere in France, and we've just got to suck it up until then, I think.
It's basically how much salary can we get covered by the team that's going to take him, and that's really it. And Tim, you mentioned Torreira, so I'll just stick with you for a second. The Pepe thing, it's weird, right? Because we definitely need more goals, but that doesn't feel like it's going to happen there. And I look at our forward line, and I think we'll still add to it, but even still, I'm comfortable giving it a go with what we've got. Midfield is just an issue, and it's an issue that's going to be an interesting one. Is there room for a Charlie Patino to find a place? Like, are we going to have Xhaka and El Neni rolling out as a double pivot on the first night, against Palace? Like, I hope not, but there's some big things that have to be sorted out in midfield. I think we will go for one, but Torreira is a player who, whatever you think of him, plays a position that looks like it needs reinforcing in our squad, and so there'd be a place for him, but never seemed to warm to London, never seemed happy. I mean, once he started playing number 10 for Unai Emery, it feels like things went the wrong direction. He's been clear he doesn't want to be at Arsenal, but he has a contract with Arsenal. It's not like he's going to bigger clubs if he leaves us. So do you think there's any possibility for Mikel to get in his ear and make a case for using him, or do you suspect that, much like Pepe, both player and club are content to see this go a different direction?
Yeah, I think I think there's almost no chance we'll probably see Torreira in a pre-season friendly or two to keep him fattened up for the window. But yeah, I think it's quite clear on both sides. Like you say, if you take away the not insignificant points about his contract, the fact that he just never set. I don't think the Premier League was an issue for him, really. He had a really, really good start. But again, physically adapted pretty much straight away as well. I think it's more off the pitch. I do get maybe similar to Pepe. I don't know, actually. Maybe not so much Pepe, but I do get a little sense of immaturity from Torreira as well. I mean, to be honest, I'm not really bothered about him, lifting his skirt for every Italian side. He's trying to find a move. We want him to move. It's all good. And we know that his stock's fallen a bit, so no one's banging down our door with loads and loads of money. So I'm not really asked about that. But and I know he went through difficult times and things like that, but I think he made some slightly impetuous decisions as well, like going on loan to Atleti for a year and not playing. That struck me as a very, oh my God, I've just got to get out of here to any team, and didn't really think it through and lost the year of his career there again. It's a real shame, because the thing Torreira is really, really good at is playing at the base of a diamond, and Arsenal basically play a diamond now. So there would be a spot for him. Whether he's got the distribution qualities, I think that's the main sticking point with Arteta, that he just hasn't got that side of the game. Which is kind of fair enough. But I'm with you. I think if, say, he had 3 years left on his contract and didn't hate living in London so much. I think there'd be a space for him at the base of that midfield. I really do. But no, absolutely done. And yeah, expect to see a lot more. I've always dreamed of playing for Lazio / Roma / Parma
Napoli /
Udinese.
Yeah,
my whole life. And also he again, like, I don't know how bothered I am by this, but like he went to because he did that thing like a year or so ago about, I must go to Boca Juniors. And it's like, well, they're not going to be able to afford you, mate, are they? And like, you're Uruguayan and they're Argentinian, so it's not even like a hometown club. Like, what are you doing here? And he went to a Boca game last week and was pictured in a Boca shirt and all of that. And it's, it's all just a little bit, I don't know. There's just it feels off, some of it, to me. To be honest with you,
immature,
I do get
immature.
I do get that sense. Not like tragically so, not like Guendouzi, like, oh my God, you're such a dickhead. But do you know what I mean? Just a bit.
Yeah, well, that's the opposite problem, because if he could have gotten his head right, he has the skills in his boots to make a difference. And I
left
think
eight would be perfect for him. It really would, but alas.
Yeah, but whereas Torreira is like a player who I don't think he's quite good enough to try to solve the other issues that are causing a problem there. We got to talk about a different central midfielder, though. But I think before we do that, like, the one thing we should say, because we've talked a lot about physique and physicality today, and like, there are just these little things you can do in your game to get that extra 1%. Because like at the elite level, it's not the extra 10% now. You're talking about that 1% that can make the difference. I wonder how many players could be elite, like properly elite, if they just weren't carrying that extra little bit of hair on their body that holds them back, from whether it's from aerodynamics or comfort when they're running. And I mean, it's pretty clear. Arsenal have a high performance facility. Maybe what that facility needs is more manscaping, more lawnmower 4.0s in there. Can we get that extra 1% by, shaving down to the smoothest, most efficient part of the athlete? Well, you can do that. Hey, you. Yeah, you. It says it right here on the copy that I'm reading. It asks if you've got Bush. Now, does that mean the former presidents of the United States? Or are they maybe talking about Kate Bush, the singer? No, they're talking about hair in your privates. Yeah, I think this is meant to be like an actual landscaping pun, because it's manscaped, landscape, the whole thing. Anyway, look, moral of the story is, you got to keep yourself smooth. You got to keep yourself clean. You got to keep yourself operating at peak efficiency. And to do that, you use the tools from Manscaped. And the best one, the one that I recommend, the one that I use, not that you want to know about that, is the Lawnmower 4.0, the electric trimmer from Manscaped. It's a Bush's worst nightmare, it says here. First of all, it's got advanced skin-safe technology designed to work on loose skin thanks to a ceramic blade. Yes, in this economy. It has an LED trimmer, so you don't need night vision goggles, so you can see exactly what you're doing, right? You can use it wet. You can use it dry. It has a long battery life. It has an induction charger. And when you get the Performance Package 4.0, you also get the Weed Whacker for nose and ear hair. And a man of my age, you do need that. The deodorant, the toner, and the Manscaped Boxers, which, by the way, are my favorite pair I have. And so when you need that perfect pair of boxers, they're there. Look, get it all with 20% off and free shipping with code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. That's right. Manscaped. Oh my gosh, look, right at the end of their copy. Kate Bush may be trending at the moment, but your Bush needs some help. That's interesting. I didn't know Kate Bush was trending, by the way. I wonder what that's for. Maybe I don't want to know. We'll see. 20% off and free shipping when you go to manscaped.com. Use promo code ArsenalVision. That's manscaped.com, promo code ArsenalVision. Save 20% off and free shipping. And once you've done that, you can focus on the other thing Arsenal needs to focus on, which is the talent pool. And they do it with the transfer market. You can do it with Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner that lets you attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. They got great tools. Not the lawnmower so much, but they got the Instant Match, they got the assessments, they got the virtual interviews. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data. Now, there's virtual interviews. I am virtual right now, right? I'm in Portugal. I'm in Lisbon. I'm going to be doing my job from this location. I'm going to be doing the podcast from this location because we can work virtually. Well, we should be able to interview that way. And virtual interviews saves you time. You can message, schedule an interview all in one place. No downloads, no plugins. You can do it right from your browser. So there's no technology challenges with it. And employers said it saved them days of hiring time, according to Indeed data. So You need to do this. You need to join one of the 3 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed. Sign up for Indeed now and get a $75 credit towards your first sponsored job. Plus, earn up to $500 extra in sponsored job credits with Indeed's virtual interviews. Visit Indeed.com/Blue Wire to learn more. Claim your credits at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. You need Indeed. Clive, is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Clive, Sambi Lokonga. Let's say it didn't really impress with a weird group of players out there in the first preseason game, and I think that's enough to say he needs to go. He needs to be sold. Not good enough, not going to make it. No, I'm kidding. But look, last season was his introductory season. Not a kid, not a child. Was captain of his club side. We've been saying that for a while. Has played for his national team. This isn't Charlie Patino. This is a player who should now be ready to contribute and ideally contribute regularly. He did contribute early last season. We lost him a little in the middle of the season, and when it was time to get him back, he really wasn't there for us at a critical juncture when we needed someone late in the season, and that someone wound up being Elneny, not Sambi Lokonga. I would suggest in order for this transfer to wind up looking like a success, this is a season where it's going to need to be Sambi more often than it needs to be Mohamed Elneny. Mohamed Elneny is a good guy to have in the dressing room, a good senior player who can give you some minutes. But he's not the level we need if we want to hit the goals, the KPIs that we have. Sambi, I think, can be. This is the season he needs to be. So, are you ready to, I don't want to say sell him, but consider selling him based on 1/2 against Nuremberg in the first preseason game?
Actually, he was fine, actually. And again,
okay. No, we're not selling him. Good.
Yeah, you have to look at, when I look at these games, what am I trying to see here, right? So I want to see how people look and how they make me feel. And so we spoke about Patino earlier. I thought, okay, I know you've got talent, but now you look different amongst this group. I looked at Elneny, and to be fair to him, mate, his confidence is through the roof. He looked different in the group. He's saying, yeah, all right, lads, don't worry. But Sambi, again, we spoke about physicality, but there are certain positions, spinal positions, where I think you do need the right body shape, the right size. And he looked stronger and bigger. And he looked played a bit more authority. None of them were super sharp in that first half. None of them were. And I always hold back a little bit of that because we're never too sure what they've done that day. Sometimes they train in the morning and then play at night. I mean, crikey. Some players can do that, some players can't, So yeah, he looked fine. It'd be interesting to see how he developed, because when Elneny came on as the dad, he suddenly looked better. But so did Gabriel Martinelli, and so did Gabriel Jesus, and everyone looked better, right? So everyone looked better. So I'm not worried about him at all. I think he's got personality to get on the ball, and he knows what he's doing. And I think he's got real bravery to try things. But I'm thinking maybe he's better one up, and that, he's one up rather than playing the deeper role. I think he could develop there. Not say better there. I think he'll develop as a 6. He'll be a 6 one day. But right now, let's get you on the pitch. Just make sure you've got people around you. You've got a senior player around you. And let's see if we can get you just playing in our system and running games. And whether I think he's an 8 or a 6, doesn't really matter. I need you on the pitch, the level of responsibility that you can deal with, and you can show your talent, and you can build your confidence. And then we can put you in the scary position where you're standing in the middle of your pitch on your own, and everyone else is 25 yards to your right, 25 yards to your left. That takes a certain amount of talent and experience, which he hasn't got yet. So I think it's important that we recognise that and make sure there's always a Xhaka or an Elneny next to him to allow him to grow into the team.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair enough. It's not so much that this is a hard thing, right? I want to be clear. I'm not saying sell him on the basis of 1/2 of preseason football. I'm just saying judge him thoroughly based on that. I like Sambi Lokonga, and I actually think Mikel maybe can look at himself a little bit for how last season went and not finding opportunities to use him more through the run where we were playing well, such that he really didn't feel like he was there for him towards the end of the season. And look, he came on in some tough spots in that 3-game losing streak that we had, right? The Palace, Brighton, Southampton losing streak. No one was great against Southampton, but that was a game where we dominated possession. They just sat deep, right? And we couldn't break the door down. That wasn't a Sambi issue. I think he actually looked good when he came on against Palace. I don't know. I think that he's a player that we just need to give some opportunity to, and maybe he'll flourish. This season, the one thing I really do believe, and I know, Clive, that you felt that not having Europa League was a benefit last season. I think it proved to be a benefit that we came so close, but not quite to taking full advantage of. But I do think for players like Sambi, the Europa League is going to be a blessing, because I think he's going to start all of those games. And
Totally
maybe,
agree.
just maybe, that becomes like the catalyst for his Arsenal career to take off. Tim, unless you want to add on Sambi, there's a couple other bits and bobs from this one. You have something? Yeah,
just a quick one. There are three things that could really benefit him this season. Definitely the Europa League. I definitely think, again, that left 8 space, I'd be very interested to see him there, and given the Europa League games there, to try and develop. The second thing, the second and third thing are linked. One of the reasons we couldn't find opportunities for some of these players was because we were never more than one goal ahead.
Yeah.
So you can't bring players on with 20 minutes to go like that when you're scrapping for your life in a 1-0. So, hopefully we can be 2 or 3-0 up a bit more often and give these guys 20 minutes at the end of the game. But also the 5 subs rule, it stands to reason to me that he should be another big beneficiary from that. So when Arsenal are 3-0 up in every single game, as they surely will be next season on 60 minutes, we can give him that last 30 minutes. And I really think one of the things that makes him interesting for that left 8 role, like I'm looking at that left 8 role, and I don't think Jack has done anything bad there, but I'm looking at, we don't score enough goals. We need more goals. We've got the striker in to score some goals. That's going to help a lot. But we need something more from there in the penalty area as well. I'm not sure whether Lokonga's got it in the penalty area, but what he's really got, what he does, what his superpower, as it were, tap the mug, is ball carrying. And we don't have that in a lot of other players, actually. We have good technicians, and we have players like Xhaka, like El Neni, but we don't have a lot of real ball carriers. I mean, we have one in Saka, and you can see how often we use him. So, and over on the right. So if we've got one in this left 8 space as well, who can carry the ball over to the left as well, I think if I were him, I'd be looking at that and saying, okay, that's something I can bring to this team. Not just to the position, but to the team. I'm one of the few guys who has this attribute. So I'm going to work my balls off on it and try and break into this team.
Clive?
Yeah, I agree with that. I actually think he's my breakout player for the season. And if he grabs that position, we spoke about Guendouzi earlier on. So to think about the similarities to how they play, how they drift, how they carry. They got a personality to shoot when they shouldn't really. Do you know what I mean? They got similar attributes. And we all saw the last game of the season when he came on in that position, and we thought, oh, this is interesting. I do think that's the place for him to go. Whether we buy somebody on top of him, it's going to be interesting, And I think sometimes in a preseason game, I know you guys dismiss it sometimes, but that Patino performance may allow more time for Sambi to play the first team. And they say, well, actually, we're not going to put Sambi in the Europa League team. We're going to push him up one, and we're going to bed in Patino because we think he's close. And sometimes you put players on top and you make their journey harder. I love a Tielemans. I really want it. But we have, and I'm criticising myself here, contradicting myself, because I believe getting good players is important and making people fight. But if you do get a Tielemans, I do think it needs to be an exit. And he's not one of the young ones. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's your mate, Elliot. It's your mate. Right, so and so there needs to be an exit.
I mean, is that legal? I'm still not convinced that player is allowed to leave the club. He's got pictures of someone. I don't know. It's just,
but you know what I mean? Because you create room then. You create room for that development. And I think that Patino performance may drive the transfer strategy. And that's how things can change in pre-season.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like it to be based on maybe just a little bit more concrete information. But I agree with you that some players do need to move on to make room, only because their personality and their presence dominates a department of the pitch so thoroughly that no one else can really grow into it while that person is there. And I think that we saw some of that with some of the other senior players that have gone, whether it was a Mesut Ozil or an Aubameyang or whatever the case may be. There are players that dominate areas of the pitch, and you moving on from them gives other players opportunities to grow into responsibility and prominence in that area. I'm going to just reference Matt Turner, not the debut he would have hoped for. There's some people saying Runnerson. I think that's premature. I mean, the thing I'll say about Runnerson is I think I'm taller than Runnerson, which in a goalkeeper is concerning. Turner's, I think, 6'3", which at a minimum means he can like reach the top of the goal. He can reach all areas of the goal. He hasn't exactly played top level football himself, but my attitude is, as you know, we have a goalkeeper. His name is Aaron Ramsdale, and he's going to play all the league games. And so can Matt Turner play the Europa League and the domestic cups? If he can't, then you find someone who can. But I still maintain that the easiest thing in football to find is a competent backup goalkeeper. I really, really do. And I don't think you should ever be spending big money to get it, which is why Ramsdale wasn't a backup goalkeeper. He was a starter, and we bought him and we got him, right? And that worked out, and everybody's happy, and it went exactly as I expected, and that's why, I said all the things I said, none of which you can go check because they're not on record. So it's all good. And we're going to try to get John Harrison on the pod to do some goalkeeping breakdown because he is the absolute best at that. You're going to enjoy that when we do that. So Maitland-Niles, Tim, another one in this category of plays a couple of different roles we could use, can play right back, and we don't necessarily love our options there. Past Tomiyasu can play in midfield, and we look a little light in there. Another example, though, of a player whose career has drifted, has made some questionable choices or comments at least, hasn't always had a manager that backed him, or if the manager did back him, maybe he didn't want to do what was being asked. I mean, it's impossible to know that for sure, but, these players come back, and there are players you see in preseason, we're like, oh yeah, that guy. Had a little bit of that with Maitland-Niles. He went from a really exciting academy player we're looking forward to a guy where I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about him. Do you think that's another one who's in the departure lounge and this will just be a little preseason reunited or has a path back?
100% gone. Again, Another one with 1 year left on his deal, and one that in hindsight we should have taken the money from Wolves when it was on the table. And
yes, sir.
He can only reflect on some of the decisions he's made as well, because he should be looking at Arsenal, trying to push out the boat to buy a player like Lisandro Martinez because he can play 3 different positions, and Arteta is apparently willing to pay quite big money for a player like that. And you should be thinking, God, when Arteta first got here, I was getting in the team because I'm what he wants. I'm that right back that can tuck in. I'm that left back that can go outside. I can help us go from a back 3 to a back 4, depending on whether we've got the ball or not. I think let's talk about him in the past tense now. He had all of the attributes to be a success in this team. And by the way, being back up left back at Arsenal would have got him a lot of minutes and a lot of important games. And how he started the cup final, right, in 2020, playing all right as a left wing back when we were playing back 5. But that on its own would have got him minutes, would have got him plenty of minutes. And, he should be looking at someone like El Neni, who can only play one role in the team, getting a new contract. When he's, 30 at the moment, El Neni? He should be looking at this and just thinking, I'm better than El Neni, and I can play more positions.
31 today, Tim, actually. It's his birthday.
Well, there you go. Happy birthday, Mo. So, it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating. Maitland-Niles has been, I don't know whether he's been badly advised or whether it's, him or whether he's just been unlucky with some of the decisions he's made. I mean, he's got a right to say, actually, I'd prefer to be a central midfielder, but there also seems to be some indecision because he has said, I will play fullback. I don't think he's ever done, the interview, I hate playing fullback, I'll never play there. But again, it just a lack of decisiveness, I think, a lack of, all right, I can play this role in this team. I can, and I'll get a lot of minutes. Or being like, no, I'm going to go. It all feels a bit Theo Walcott up front, I want to play up front. No, I don't want to play up front anymore. Oh, I want to play up front. No, I don't want to play up front anymore. And he's just someone who hasn't made a firm decision about his career, and now he's in limbo. And to go back to our Smith Rowe conversation, I mean, I don't think, certainly not immediately, Smith Rowe's not in any danger of this, but that would be a cautionary tale, right? Everything we were talking about Smith Rowe earlier, again, if you're that coach or whoever having that conversation with him saying, don't become like this guy, try and figure out what you are and go for it. And that's what you always want to see a young player doing. Just like I was talking about with Sambi Lokonga. What am I good at? What can I bring to this team? Right. That's what I'm going to go for. That's what I'm going to try and show the coach every day. And Maitland-Niles, he had that. He had it in his hands, that versatility. It was a strength and not a weakness, but he treated it like a weakness. And he's going to go this summer, and he's probably going to go to Nottingham Forest or Fulham or someone like that. And he's going to fight relegation like he did when he went on loan to West Brom. And, I'm sorry, that's on him. And it's a shame because he could be a useful player for us.
Yeah, he's a very different player from Joe Willock, but I feel similarly about both of them in the sense that neither of them do the one thing you have to do in midfield well enough, and that's pass the football. Neither of them pass the football well enough. Both of them have exciting skills that make them very, very interesting, but neither of them pass the football well enough to regularly start in midfield at the elite level. And Joe Willock can run with the ball, make long driving runs, arrive in the box and score goals. And Maitland-Niles can step past someone, play the longer passes from the fullback position. He is a shutdown defender when he's switched on and focused and wants to be. They are both players that I think it is hard to know where their position is. And much like an Alex Iwobi, I guess, unless you find that manager who comes along and really gets who you are and gets what you do, and you buy into what that manager's telling you, and that manager buys into the thing they see in you. And when that happens, sometimes those players just click. And sometimes that doesn't happen. To Arsene Wenger's credit, Arsene Wenger had that quality in a way very few managers do. And the reason I say that is, look at some of the players that were great at Arsenal who left Arsenal and stunk the place out, because he found just the way to use them. Alex Hleb, right, couldn't play at all when he left the club, but just the way to use him in a pocket of space where his dribbling was good. And yeah, we were sometimes frustrated that he wouldn't shoot, but we got something out of him. I think Arsene Wenger got the best out of Alex Iwobi for a while to really bring Alexis into the game and dovetailed nicely with Ozil and Giroud. There's just ways you can get these players to perform, but at some level, they have to have just the right set of responsibilities to bring out their characteristics. And I don't think that's going to happen for Maitland-Niles. I don't think we need to go any farther on that, Clive, but I do see you leaning into the microphone, and I know you want to have a nibble. So why don't you have a nibble?
Well, players change.
We'll switch gears to just a little bit of transfer stuff.
Yeah. Players change. Iwobi's developed differently now. He's now an 8, and he could be a quite good one. He's played wing back, he's played full back, he's played up top. And now I'm thinking, actually, he's now improved his defensive side. And towards the end of the season, Everton was struggling. He stepped up, mate. He'll be an 8, and he'll be a really good 8. A very good 8. Watch the space on that one. Maitland-Niles, mate. I'm not going to add on what Tim said because you know my frustrations here. And I never swear on the podcast, but I'm close. All right, so, yeah, it just disappoints me. And I'm looking at Cedric, the player we bought to play both-sided fullbacks, and I know Maitland-Niles can do that job. Why did we have to go to the market? And because there wasn't a level of acceptance of role, right? So accept your gift. You're both-sided fullback, and you have done it. You kept Bukayo Saka on the bench in a cup final. You can do it, and you can be that transition defender that inverts and stops people breaking. Who's going to run past him? I mean, it's just so frustrating, mate. It really is, Not every one of our academy people got to be a superstar. Just be a functional football player so we haven't got to go out to the market and buy a Cedric or a Grimaldo. Do you know what I mean? And that's what we're talking about right now. And that disappoints me a lot.
Yeah. All right. So let's do the last few minutes of the pod on Pablo Mari. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to keep making that joke. I don't know. That's a classic example of a preseason player who you're like, oh yeah, that guy. You don't have any appetite to see anything further. Why don't we do I think that's enough on the game. There's going to be more games and more to dig into from games. Let's do just a little bit on transfer stuff. We were linked with Paqueta, and depending on what you believe of people's opinions on the internet, he's either the best player in League On who's not named Messi, Neymar, or Mbappe, or he's not a good fit for us. I'm like that man in the desert looking for a drink, so I'm excited about it, and I would sign him right now based on no information about him whatsoever. But Clive, do you have a Paqueta thought? I mean, normally I might just write this off because it has the feeling of an out of nowhere rumor that isn't going to happen, but he is Brazilian, I believe, so that adds a veneer of believability to it these days. What's your thought?
Yeah, well, just about the player, he's a lovely player. I remember I asked him about him probably about a couple of years ago. I remember actually on the podcast, or pre-podcast chat, because he just stood out to me, and I thought, wow, what player he is. Again, he's played left, he's played right, he's played false nine, he's played he's played left 8. Again, I'm not sure what he is, but then I urge you again, like I did with Savic the other day. When you look at the YouTubes, you're gonna fall in love, right? Because he's a stand-up footballer, loads of talent, a little bit one-footed, but which is his left, but he's very talented. Again, people will then have a massive debate: how are we going to use him? Where are we going to use him? Who does that affect? Yeah, and I also know that he played with Bruno Guimaraes. Tim, help me.
Guimaraes,
yeah.
Thank you. At Lyon, and I've always felt he was going to go to Newcastle. So I'm wondering if these latest rumours are just there to flush out that offer. No one's offered. They're asking for silly money. Lyon are asking for silly money, and I love the player, but I just feel we could be potentially being used to get a player's price up and get some interest. But if he was this so-called secret player that Arteta's looking for, I wouldn't be unhappy. But yeah, I just not too sure on the rumours, Elliot.
Yeah. I'll switch over to you on a different one, Tim. And that is Tielemans. Like, we've said everything there is to say about whether we want him or what he would do, but like the rumors seem to be popping back up. And I have an attitude towards this one, which is I've always thought he fills a need we have. I think he's at the right age. I think the price looks reasonable. The player wants to come. I think can solve a few problems, right? If we need to be in a double pivot, he can kind of do it, but he can also play that left 8. He's Premier League tested. He's the right point of his career to step in and just be ready. It just feels like a deal we can do, we should do, and I still think we'll do. I mean, is your attitude like, okay, just get this one done. We're into preseason now. The games will be here before you know it, because as we've discussed on a previous pod, there's 5 of them in August.
Yeah, I've probably moved more into that space now because it looks like, my theory was always that they probably realised they couldn't get / afford Raphinha, Martinez and Tielemans. And, I think the sun has very much set on the Raphinha chase. Barcelona are going to bankrupt themselves doing that deal.
Good for them. Long may it continue.
Indeed. And Martinez as well. That kind of, although a lot of the talk is that, that isn't dead for Arsenal by any means, but like the Raphinha one, that's absolutely gone. I really like Lucas Paqueta a lot. I think he's a really, really good player. I think he'd be really, really good for that left 8. I do wonder, because he's a 10-y 8, as it were. I do wonder how that would work with him and Ødegaard. I'm not sure I see the symmetry between those two players necessarily. Maybe I'm wrong there, because maybe again Silva and De Bruyne, and I think we do need more offensively. Paqueta for Brazil, but essentially what Brazil do is they start him as one of their 8s when they play crap teams, but when they play good teams, they start Fred there from Manchester United, who, by the way, is a far, far better player than he looks at Man United. And one day, people are going to realise the fact that all these brilliant players look shit at Man United. There's a common denominator. But Fred, he's a really, really good player. In fact, do you know what? That's a transfer I'd do for Arsenal, to be honest, if I could. But yeah, so what Brazil do, they tend to, if we're going to have all of the ball and we're going to win 4-0, we'll play Paqueta there. if not, and we need a bit more security, we play Fredge there. So, maybe something similar would be an option for Arsenal. We play Xhaka there against the big teams, and Paqueta against the kind of the crap. But I agree with Clive. I don't actually think there's any substance to this from an Arsenal perspective.
I should mention that it's sort of weird that the Raphinha to Barcelona deal is $72 million. It appears that they are going to pay $500,000 the first year, and they promised $71.5 million the second year. I'm sure Leeds will get that cash, so no worries, Leeds. I'm sure it's coming. No fear
Leeds
at all.
must be looking at this transfer thinking, oh yeah, we used to do this stuff about 20 years ago.
And look where that got us.
Good luck to you. I tell you what, if I was doing a deal with Barcelona, I wouldn't be accepting any deals in installments. I don't know if you saw that story. Who was it who turned down an installments deal from Barcelona because they weren't confident they'd exist?
Yeah, like if you go around someone's house and they got a lot of past due notices sitting on their front stoop, like you don't take installment deals from them. Clive, the Grimaldo news strikes me a little bit like the Zagrova news. Like I'm just not choosing to believe it because I don't think it does much for us. Like it feels very Cedric-y to me, right? Like a cheap player to be a backup who ultimately someday you're going to see him playing for you and going, we didn't really want this player to begin with, and now he's playing and we don't want him playing. And like, I'm, maybe he's a little better than Cedric or not. And maybe you love Cedric and you're listening to this going, Cedric's good, leave him alone. Like point is, these aren't move the needle deals. It's also not move the needle cash, but I'd be inclined to say there's no need to do this. Maybe this is one of those areas where I'm like, surely we have a young, exciting player that can just play the role as well or better,
Now, there's a guy in the youth team called Lino Sosa that's not quite ready yet, but when he is ready, he'll be fine because he's a talent. They got him from West Brom. Looks like a good player. Only 17 though. So, Grimaldo, I'm not an expert on him, but I've done my watching, and yeah, I saw some critique of your Cedric comment on Twitter. Not that you care.
He's better than Cedric. Genuinely don't.
He's better than Cedric.
I mean, well, he may be better than Cedric, but better than Cedric is not the bar we're trying to just like get over, just slightly climb over.
I think the adult debate is our left side, right the way along, from our left back and the issues we've had left back for 2 seasons. Our left-sided 8. And we started off talking about Smith Rowe on the left up front. That left side is a development area, right? And how we're on the right side, we are pretty cool. None of us are arguing with any positions there, particularly when everyone's fit. Our central defenders, we've added to that pool. We sort of know what we're doing at the base of midfield and to the right side of our pods, for example. The left side, we could chat all day on it. Yeah, we really could. It's been a problem for us. And what's the plan? What's the plan with Kieran Tierney, who's got a contract till I think 26? What's the plan with Nuno, who some people hate, some people will give him a chance? We're looking at backups. Are we going to loan Nuno? Are we looking to buy somebody to eventually take over from Tierney, who potentially could go to Newcastle or Man City, who would take him in the flick of a switch? What are we doing here on the left-hand side? And I think that's the discussion to have. What is the plan? Or do we do nothing? Do we say, you know what? We develop Nuno. We've got Saliba in now. We know Tomiyasu can play left back. So if you're worried about Nuno playing some games, we've potentially got cover. With Saliba coming in, we can move him to right back or White to right back. So we've got more defensive cover in there. So we can develop Nuno in-house. Or do we develop him outside of the club and make his mistakes out of the limelight? But yeah, I'm not sure about buying players like Grimaldo. I'm not seeing anything that impresses me. I'm not an expert here, but I'm thinking, what problems do you solve for me, mate? That's what I'm thinking. What problems do you solve for me? Who do you stop? Who do you stop? Can you stop Kulusevski? Can you stop Salah? Well, I'm not sure, right? Can you stop these players? I don't think so, Elliot, but that's just my view.
Here's the point. We can have a grown-up conversation about whether it's time to think about moving away from Kieran Tierney. We may need to do that. That may need to happen. I don't think anybody, even if they think I'm too low on Grimaldo, is going to say he's a Kieran Tierney replacement. He's not. No one thinks that. And so at the point that he's a Kieran Tierney backup, like, and you and I are, not where everybody else is on this, I'm fine just using Tavares. I really think he has a skill set that's interesting and worth leaning into. But like, if the goal is to replace Tierney, this isn't the guy to do it. If the goal is to back up Tierney, I'm okay with who we have there. Some people aren't. And I get that. And like, that, like, let's face it, right? Like, Arteta may be the one who doesn't believe that guy can back up Tierney. So that may be the issue. And Tim has typed in that Lisandro Martinez feels more like replacement. I agree. I think that's probably the role that was considered. I don't think it's going to happen. Clive?
Yeah, well, this is it. This is the conversation, isn't it? If we're prepared to spend 50 mil on Martinez, and who's a centre-back by trade, playing 10% of his game as left-back, but we're going to use him as inverted left-back, that makes a lot of sense to me. What does that mean for Kieran Tierney? What does that mean for Nuno? Where are we going here? Where are we going this left side? This is the discussion, mate. This is the discussion to have that none of us are really 100% clear on at the moment.
Yeah, well said. And I think with that, like, the only thing I'll add is that Saliba is back. He's at Arsenal. Last word, Tim, like, actually, I'm going to say one thing real quick. Jack Wilshere joining as the U18, right? U18 coach, and good for him.
We say like under 18.
Under 18. Sorry. U18 is a submarine they used in World War One. The U18. Sorry. Under 18s. Sorry. Every once in a while.
Given that most of our club is now Brazilian, it would be sub 18.
There you go. Sub 18. I wonder how his Portuguese is coming along. But I do love Jack Wilshere. I mean, he will always be Arsenal for me, and I'm glad he's here. I mean, the most important thing is if he's qualified and if he can do the job, we'll find that out. But like, I do love him. I'm glad he's back, and we wish Jack the best. But the last point then is Saliba. There was some rumor he was going to sign a new deal today. It doesn't seem like that's happened. I mean, I do think it is important just in the sense that we are going to get to that position with him where we start to worry about protecting asset value. But that's a conversation for another day. Tim, I would just say this. I'll be the first one to raise my hand, and I have on Twitter and I have on here, and say, I got this dead wrong when we gave his number away, when we sent him away last season, when he didn't play a minute. I thought, you know what? He was signed by the prior regime. Arteta doesn't particularly care for him. He's going to go play somewhere else, and that's how this is going to pan out. Now, that still could happen. Nothing's decided yet, but we're now on that approach, that taxiway towards seeing what will happen. I think an important preseason for him to come in, to be part of the group. I think he makes us a lot better because I think he gives us a lot of optionality at center back. And if we want to play a back three, which we did for a little bit, by the way, on the second half against Nuremberg, he gives us a really interesting back three with White, Gabriel, and Saliba. And then we can do different things at wing back. We don't have to play Tierney if he's not there, right? We can play a Gabriel Martinelli as a wing back, which I think we did in this game, by the way. So a player I'm excited to see if he can get an Arsenal career going. We're going to find that out, I would think, over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely. I saw a tweet from someone this morning saying that he'd come into training with his agent. I don't know how normal that is. Maybe they all come in with their agents on the first day. And obviously, if you come in with your agent, I mean, he's not there to watch, is he? But that conversation, that could be, here's a new contract. That could be, we want to leave. That could be, I think the most likely is it's just a conversation about like, okay, where do we see this going? This is like Saliba is, I know everyone got weary of the like a new signing lands thing during the Wenger era, but this really, really is because he's never played for us before. So basically what we've got now, I mean, obviously what we bought was an 18-year-old for 27 million, which made you think, God, he must be good. But what we've got now is a 21-year-old for 27 million. Like, let's erase the last like 3 seasons. That would be really exciting. Like if we'd just paid 27 million pounds for a 21-year-old centre half who's who's been in the France squad a couple of times. Let's say we just signed him from Marseille. Hugely exciting deal. And so, yeah, definitely. And Clive was talking earlier about, and I completely agreed, by the way, I did an article last week on like the left 8 and some of the options that we have there. And I know it doesn't sound like Xhaka's going, but I think, for example, if we did get Tielemans, I'd be open to that and as a sale. And I feel similarly about Rob Holding. Obviously not as big a player for Arsenal, but very much like it feels to me like he's in a holding pattern. Haha. And it's very much like if, we get through pre-season and Saliba's happy and maybe they open contract talks, I've got a feeling that Holding might go through the door. It might just be one of those, yeah, we can get 8 million for you. You've done a good job for us. Thanks very much. But we're going to go in a different direction because now we've got the centre backs we want. And that also would make sense again going for Martinez as well. You wouldn't see room for Holding there if we had another centre back like that. So there's a few irons in the fire here. But my read on this is that he's come back with an open mind, and he hasn't come back thinking I definitely want out, or I definitely want to sign a new deal. I think what happens over pre-season and what happens in training and the conversations they have, maybe some of the team selections for the first few games will, I think basically my read is I'm taking this quite face value and that everyone's quite open-minded, but the next 6 weeks or so will set the tone for what does end up actually happening with Saliba.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think there's maybe a little meat on this bone in the sense that I think the presumption that it's just all good now and here we go and his career starts. I don't know if we're there yet, Clive. But as a final word, I think we're certainly in a better position than I thought we might be at this point. And now there's a chance for it to go the direction we all hope it does.
Yeah, this is the most interesting signing in our recent history, shall we say, to sign someone so young.
Most debated.
Yeah, and then
tell you that much.
And then to make decisions that we made on him, many decisions, some right, some wrong. Let's be honest, he lost 3 months of his career playing with children in the under-21s league, under-23s league. Not good for him, not good for his ego. And if he comes back and signs a new contract and starts playing, that is Lazarus stuff, right? It really is. It's because he is a player. He is a proper player playing at the top level, playing in one of the best international teams in the world, if not the best. And he's very close to holding down the spot, right? So you can't ignore that. That is serious. As Tim said earlier, if we were to try to buy him now, it's north of 50. Easy, north of 50. Too much potential, too much time on his side, too much stuff that's very hard to teach. His presence and aura is unbelievable. The way he wins duels is incredible. I think, it may be much like you spoke about Torreira. I think there was a maturity issue here and it needs to be resolved. And he looks more mature now. He's working hard in pre-season before he even gets to Arsenal, like many players do. I don't think he's come here to carry the water bowls. No chance. If he signs a new contract, he's here to be part of this group. Just in an interview, Klopp just now talk about he's got 4 brilliant centre-backs. That's what you need. You need 4 brilliant centre-backs. We potentially have 3. We need to do something else with another one. Is that Pablo Mari? or is that...
It's not.
You sure?
It better not be. Not for my sanity, please.
Well, I watched the game at the weekend and trust me, there's been no improvements there. In fact, it's actually got worse. I'd say, is that Pablo Mari? Is it Rob Holding? I'm not sure it's either. I think we'll develop another. We'll find a 4th centre-back, shall we say. But I'm hoping Saliba gets on the boat, Elliot, because he's a very good player.
Yep. And with that, I am going to get on a float in a pool with a drink that has booze in it. I don't care that it's 10:54 in the morning. Doesn't matter. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. It literally isn't 5 o'clock anywhere because it could be 4:54 somewhere, 5:54, but it can't. Anyway, you know what? Let's leave it there. The jet lag is starting to kick in. Clive's on Twitter at ClivePFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Tim's on Twitter at Roberto. Thanks, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
My name is Elliot Smith, on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. There may be just a slightly bit less Paul over the next 3 weeks, given that I'm in European time, Tim and Clive are in European. Well, actually, we're all on UK time because Lisbon is on the same time zone. Moral of the story is, makes it a little trickier to coordinate with Paul because I have morning availability more than other stuff. So anyway, he will be doing a lot of stuff on the Patreon side. Putting Paul behind the paywall was honestly probably the smartest thing we could have done. Should have done it ages ago, and long may it continue. I'm kidding. We love Paul. We love Scott. We love everybody. We love you most of all for listening. Thank you for being here. And as news breaks, we will cover it, sort of, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We love you. And we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10 transfer window.